welcome back to the Warbird Mistress. Today is Wednesday, the 28th of January, 1942, and this is A Walk Through the War. Beginning in the Southwest Pacific Theater of Operations with the Far East Air Force, B-17s from Malang, Java, and Palembang, Sumatra, attack airfields at Kendari on Celebes Island and Kuala Lumpur, British Malaya. Further east in the Central Pacific Theater of Operations in the Hawaiian Air Force, the B-17s of Task Group 8.9 fly an unsuccessful anti-submarine mission from Canton Island and the Phoenix Islands. The presence or absence of Japanese subs is not known for certain, but the exercise is not in vain as it provides operational experience, both for the pilots and for the Navy, in sea-air coordination. In the zone of the interior, in the American Theater of Operations, the 44th Heavy Bombardment Group's 66th, 67th, and 68th Heavy Bomb Squadrons begin flying sub-patrols from Barksdale Field in the Louisiana with B-18s and B-24s. Today also marks the activation of the headquarters of the 8th Air Force in Savannah Air Base, Georgia, with Colonel Asa Duncan commanding. The 8th's role is to act as the air element of Operation Gymnast, the Allied plan for the seizure of Casablanca and invasion of Northwest Africa. This original plan was promoted by Roosevelt as a way to bring the war to Germany and prevent Stalin from seeing the West as ineffectual co-belligerents. While many on the general staff thought that Operation Sledgehammer, a cross-channel operation, would be appropriate for 1942, the British knew that the amphibious and logistics resources simply did not exist. Gymnast called for the delay of an invasion of France until at least 1944, and first invading French North Africa. American troops would invade French Morocco, where cooperation would be unlikely as contacts with the Vichy had not been made in such a way that the invasion would not be seen as exactly that, an invasion. Air support would arrive from Gibraltar and Malta, while the British, Indians, and other Commonwealth troops made a grand combined sea-air-land offensive in French Tunisia with the support of the Royal Navy, who planned to flood naval resources into the Mediterranean from the Pacific via both Suez and the Cape. It was hoped that the Vichy would not invade the British Mandate of Palestine or link up with the Axis-aligned forces of Rashid Ali Gilani in Iraq. A dangerous plan, to say the least, it relied on many what-ifs, let alone logistical assets and experienced troops that simply did not exist. The role of the 8th Air Force would be to act from newly captured air bases and provide long-range reconnaissance and support. But it is unclear how this was going to happen and on what air support raw American troops would depend while they attempted an invasion with little naval air support, none of the amphibious experience or assets of the Marine Corps, and a supply chain an ocean wide. The plan would be scrapped not only as impractical, but particularly as the Royal Navy took such a beating from the Japanese, they could no longer promise to keep what remained of the Italian fleet safe in harbor and the Luftwaffe at bay. Japanese air assaults on the Royal Navy rendered all assets from and beyond Suez necessary for the defense of British territories and India. Not everything from Gymnast would go for the circular file, however, as it was used as a skeleton of Super Gymnast and finally Operation Torch. If anything, Gymnast is an example of American idealism and gung-ho early in the war and the devastating effect the war with Japan had on Allied ability to prosecute the war against Germany, even if Germany first was the policy. Thus it leaves us with an interesting what-if to ponder. And that brings us to Thursday, the 29th of January, 1942. In the zone of the interior, the 107th Observation Squadron Light of the 67th Observation Group stops sub-patrols and transfers from Charleston to Esler Field in the Louisiana. Located near Alexandria in the Paras de Rapide and previously Camp Beauregard Army Field and a major center for air operations during the Louisiana maneuvers, it had been renamed in April 1941 for Lieutenant William Esler, who had experienced a fatal crash earlier in the year while flying his North American O-47. And turning from the Bayou to the Pacific, the Central Pacific Theater of Operations, Hawaiian Air Force, sees the headquarters of the 18th Bombardment Wing inactivated and replaced by the headquarters of the 7th Bomber Command at Hickam Field. Further out at sea, the B-17s of Task Group 8.9 fly from Canton Island to Palmyra Atoll as they continue their mission of anti-submarine sweeps, maritime patrol, force projection, air-sea operational collaboration, and tests of the Navy and Coast Guard's radar and the Army's capacity for long-range maritime navigation. Nearby, the U.S. Army forces in Fiji received the P-39 Airacobras of the 70th Pursuit Interceptor Squadron, which arrived today in the British territory after long shuttle flights from the States. And as we cross the dateline, we also changed the calendar to Friday, the 30th of January, 1942. In the Southwest Pacific Theater of Operations with the Far East Air Force, some successes are a treat for the day as B-17s, striking out of Palembang, Sumatra, hit Kuantan Airfield in Malaysia, not far from where the Prince of Wales and Repulse had been sunk. The bombers scored several critical hits on runways and hangars as they tried to deny the Japanese invaders the use of recently captured British Malayan resources. As we go back to the Central Pacific Theater of Operations Hawaiian Air Force, where the B-17s of Task Group 8.9 returned to Hawaii for the first time since leaving to join the Navy's Task Force 8 back on the 16th of January 1942. The mission is judged a pioneering success for both the Navy and Army Air Forces by offering a close look at the complications of air operations over the vast Pacific area that will be necessary to navigate during the war, as well as aircraft maintenance, navigation at sea, inter-service cooperation, and the potential roles and benefits of Army heavy bombers in maritime roles were all investigated operationally for the first time. And finally, on Saturday, the 31st of January, 1942, in the American Theater of Operations, Major General Ira Eaker is designated the Commanding General, Bomber Command, U.S. Army Forces in British Isles, and sent packing for what will be his home for the next few years, where he will become a household name as America joins the Commonwealth and Empire, alongside the free forces and refugee pilots of occupied Europe, who continue the fight against Germany and her allies, now strengthened by America's forces, industry, and resolve. And that was Wednesday the 28th of January 1942 through Saturday the 31st of January 1942. And now a word from our sponsor. Thanks for tuning in to A Walk Through the War. A little bit of a live message here. Are you tired of your old bag around the house? Because I can get you a new bag. I have these totes in stock now. This one has the same design that's on the mugs. My only mistress is the Warbird Mistress. And on the other side is the Safe for Work version with Korean War Hero. So, I mean, they're well made. Black bottom canvas. I use it to lug my stuff around at work and all that sort of things. It carries an incredible amount of nonsense, and I'm sure you guys don't carry half of what us girls do. So, if you do want them and you think that maybe I should stock them in the store, let me know in the comments. And if it's something that you'd like now, well, let me know in the comments. And I'll see if I can get a larger run. Right now, I only have a couple in stock. And I kind of did them, for myself and also just to see if maybe it was something that would be popular. So for you, for a loved one, for, just having around, or even just to keep your model kits in until you finally get around to building them like we all have. So, until next time, this is Claire, and I am the Warbird Mistress. Take care.